Hey Cara, this is a tutorial for you for your icon. So you're going to create a new file. I just do 420 by 297, which is A3 size in landscape, so that I have a bigger board to work on. So I create that, but if you're struggling for space on your computer, then just make it a smaller document like A4 landscape. So then you go File and Place, and I've downloaded your image. So place it into the background, and then I'm going to, before I lock it into the background, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do these 3 flower petals, and I'm going to flip it on the horizontal axis. So to do that, I'm just going to turn it around so it's a little bit more aligned, like that. Okay, so now I'm going to go Object, Lock, Selection. And then I'm going to zoom into the flower. I'm going to start with the hardest one for you to use with the pen tool. So first of all, make sure you've got Window, Workspace, Essentials Classic open. It just gives you more tools on your tool palette and more tools that are open that are easily accessible. So down here you've got the pen tool. This one takes a bit of getting used to, so pay attention. So click at the start point, and then you're going to go around to this point, but when you click, you're going to hold down the mouse and you're going to drag so you get an arm that comes up. So you have to learn to manage this arm. So you can go longer, but it's not advisable to go longer. It gets very hard to manage. You're sort of following the direction that you want to go. So I'm going to leave it at about there. Now what's going to happen, you can see here, because I've got a forward facing arm, it wants to keep going and it's not going to give me that sharp point. So what you're going to do then is go back, hold down the Alt key and click on that point there. So that's going to remove that forward facing arm. So that means you can go back and create a sharper angle. So now you can't just go straight down here this time, because you've got this little curve here and then it rounds up around here. So it's always best to zoom in when you're doing this work. So I'm going to click about here, and then the arm is going back following the line of the curve. You don't want to have a big arm here because it means it will affect the next line that we do. So we're going to click it like that, and then click, hold down the mouse and drag it. So to get those arms you have to hold down the mouse and drag it. Now this is when it starts to get difficult, because it's starting to block out what's underneath and you can't see how fine a job you're doing. So go across to here in the tool palette down the bottom, you've got a white box. Just click on here to make sure that that's invisible. Now I can see through. Now I want to go back and make some changes. So with the direct selection tool, which is the white filled arrow on the right hand side up the top of the tool palette, I'm going to click on this node here. I'm going to click on that arm, and I'm going to drag it back a bit. So you can control what you're doing. Same with over here, I can drag this in a bit and move that as well. And then this one I might bring back slightly. Okay, so again I go back to my pen tool and I hold down the Alt key, because what's going to happen is it's going to want to do this big sweeping curve again. So hold down the Alt key, click on there to remove that forward facing arrow, and then click again about the midpoint and drag the arm until it gives you that curve that you want, and then click on the point up here and drag backwards. So imagine it like tracing, where the arm is following the direction of the line pretty much. Now what happens here, you can start to get kinks when to remove that, by the way, just go over here and then you can work on other stuff. So if you have 2 overlapping, you start to get kinks in there. So just be mindful of that, and that's why you don't want to have arms that are too long. So that's a nice curve there. Back to the pen tool, click on the Alt key to get rid of that forward facing arm, and then again you can try and do it in one. You don't always get the same control, but let's see how it goes. So that trace is fine. So then again click on the Alt on that node there, and that removes the arm. Then go to about here, click on there, and then go to the point and just click, because it's giving me the curve that I want. And then we go down to about here and drag outwards, and you get the curve that you want there. Okay, so if you're not happy with any of the curves, just when you're finished or as you're going, go back and move these arms ever so slightly, and that's where it controls the direction of the lines. Okay, so now I've got that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it and see if it will work for me. So object, transform, reflect, and then it shows you a little icon here as well, so you can either reflect horizontal or vertical. So I'm going to reflect on the horizontal and click on copy. And then with the arrow key, I'm simply just going to move down. And so you can see that both these sides weren't quite symmetrical. So I'm going to delete that because I'm not ready to join it yet. I'm going to get this, and I'm going to, before I do that, I've got rulers set up here, so you can go window, view, and then down to rulers, and then so you click on rulers. I've already got them there. So if I just click on this top ruler and drag it down to the point where I started, that will show me a guide. So now I can see that it's aligned. So now I'm going to click on my circle, and I'm going to hover near a corner so I get the bendy tool, so that means I can rotate it, and I'm going to rotate it so that it's looking more aligned with that center point, something like that. Now let's see, with the guide, drag it down. Okay, probably the easiest way to stop any painful things happening later is to get the direct selection tool, click on this node here, and just drag it down ever so slightly till it's sitting on that line. There we go. Now we're good to go. So click on this and then go object, transform, reflect, and copy. And then take it down. And so there you have your flower. Now, if you're not happy with that, you can also try this object, transform, reflect, and let's try the vertical. So it just switches it, and go OK instead of, and maybe not, it makes a difference. If it was fine before, then just do Control Z. Now to make sure that they're joined, zoom in. So Control Y is the wireframe. So I'm going to just move this up ever so slightly. So hold down the Shift key when you do it. The Shift key will keep it aligned. It didn't really move much. So with the direct selection tool, click on those two endpoints and go Control J. And it should actually join them, but I think because this guide was in the way, so I'll delete that. Click on those two endpoints, Control J, and now it's joined. But let's see what it looks like. So it's a bit square, so we undo that and Control Y so that we can get a better look, and zoom right in. Now select it, hold down the Shift key and take it up. So it's very close to it, like that. Okay, now click on both of those endpoints, Control J to join it. And so you've got a better join than you had before. And that's because one of these lines was slightly longer than the other. So you can go back and move that back, or you can leave it as it is, it's up to you. But then you can go to stroke. So window and down to stroke. And you can make it rounded, and then it's not going to be a problem. Okay, so we zoom out and we have to do the same on the other side, and I can already see that it wasn't properly aligned because this one is overlapping, unfortunately. So that means I will have to select one and move it down slightly. And I'm just removing that end point from there. So holding down the Alt key and clicking on those two endpoints. So I'm going to click and drag over here, and let's see what happens here. Control J to join it. Okay, so you've got those joins there. So if you want to fix those joins, Control Y. It's because this arm is going downwards, and so it's tipping it up a bit. But you can simply also see what happens if you do that. Zoom out a little bit so you can move that arm so the curves aren't overlapping each other. And so there's things like that that you can do. Control 0. So you've got your flower there now. And then for the inside, people use the line tool, but there's also a brush tool, but I use a pen tool. So click here and then click on the center and then just drag, holding down the mouse, so you get your nice curve. And then I will go onto the tool palette, get the selection tool. So you can do these all individually. Or you can simply copy and paste them. And then you can rotate them, make them a bit longer, move them down into place, drag it up and play around with it till you're happy with it. Copy and paste again, rotate it. Now I'm not sure if you can see, but each time I change this, I'm changing the line weight. So that's something that you have to be careful of when you're doing iconography, that you need to have consistent line weights. You also want to have it nice and neat in the center. So if I click on here, I'll choose something like 2. So I'll probably have the same for the outside. And then click on the square tool, go down to the ellipse tool, and then you can put your little stamen. So that's giving me a white outline and a black fill. I want to reverse that, so I have a black fill and no outline. And then just copy and paste, Control C, Control V. And because it's small, it's hard to be able to move it without it wanting you to resize it. So just Control C, V, Control V again. Control V again. Whoops. Click and drag. Make sure that this is looking tidy in the center. You might want to round those edges of the stroke so that you don't have any sharp looking areas. Stroke and caps, so rounded caps, because these are lines. Now you've got the job of having to move them so that they're not overlapping and looking messy. So to do that, click on this, hold down the Shift key to add to your selection, and then just move it so that it's not looking messy in there. So we have to find the one that's looking messy. Hold down the Shift key. And then finally, this one. There you go. Okay, so now you have all of these, so you can group that, Control G, and then if you're wanting to put it in a, say, a rectangle, maybe with, or a circle, so a rectangle would be something like that. Hold down the Shift key to get a square. You can fill it black, or you can have it